Fáilte go dtí our 21-day challenge, Learn the Lore, where you can spend 3 weeks to learn more about the Irish lore. And we are coming to you from the office today, as you can see. And this is because I want to share the screen with you, because we're going to be looking at some of the source texts where, instead of me just reading it out, you're actually going to be having a look, okay? So what I'm going to do is, we are dealing with the Dinnshenchas today. So the Dinnshenchas is huge. It means the lore of place names. Din, D-I-N-D, is like an important place, and Shenchas or Henechas is old tales, traditions, that kind of thing. So that's where that word comes from, Dinnshenchas. And we have, we're going to be looking at, I wanted to look at this anyway, like overall through, we're going to be dipping in and out of the Dinnshenchas as we go through the challenge. But I think it was Gavin, one of our students, he asked specifically for the source lore around Mecha. So that is combined with the River Barrow, the metrical Dinnshenchas, and the prose Dinnshenchas of the River Barrow. So we're going to be looking at both of those, just as an example, but also because it's an interesting one. So I'm going to share my screen. And we can see here that, first of all, I want to introduce you overall to the codex. So let me actually make myself smaller here. So the codex is the online database and e-resources for Celtic studies. This is the home page. I will put a link in the description below. And this is your source for looking at kind of all the different versions. So this resource brings together the manuscripts that your stories come from, the various editors who kind of put them together in the original Irish, the Old Irish, or the Proto-Irish even in some cases. And then it also lists all the translations that are available and even links to some of them. So it's vanhamel.nl/codex/home. But as I said, there will be a link below. But I'm just going to show you an example. The example that we're working with today is the Dinnshenchas of Berba or Berba. So this is, there's a couple of different sources for it. So you've got your contexts here, and you've got links then to the different versions of it. The manuscripts that it comes from. So these are the source manuscripts, the actual physical paper books or pages where it has come from. So you've got the Book of Leinster. So you will be familiar maybe with different manuscript titles like the Book of Leinster or Lora O'Brien or the Book of Invasions or various other ones. But they're kind of collections of manuscripts as well. It all gets very complicated. This is why we're having a little dip in, and we'll just introduce you. You don't have to get your head around all of it yet, okay? So just think of the manuscripts as the paper, okay? The paper sources that it actually comes from. And then down here, then when we go to, we've got primary sources and secondary sources, and then some queried results. So it's very, very clear exactly what's like the accepted from the primary sources, the secondary sources, which would include some commentary and things like that, and maybe some artistic license on occasion taken by some of the scholars. And then the queried results, even, you know, more so with the artistic license and all that kind of stuff. So they're not 100% sure that, you know, these are completely legit, basically. Now, there's probably more to it than that. But when you're going with the primary sources, you're going to be pretty much on the mark. So Edward Gwynn is the editor who pulled all this together and translated. And this Celt translation. This is the Corpus of Electronic Texts at UCC Cork, University College Cork. And you can just click on that and you will get the link then that goes this Internet Archive. That's probably the PDF, and you've got the different volumes and various other things there, okay? So you can explore around those links. With the Dinnshenchas, what I would like to kind of cover is that there are a couple of different versions of the Dinnshenchas. So the metrical Dinnshenchas is the one that probably most people are most familiar with, maybe, where it's poetry, basically. And that's the one we're going to be taking a quick look at today, the metrical Dinnshenchas entry for the River Barrow. And what, and then you have the prose Dinnshenchas, which is like paragraphs prose work, which is not poetry, obviously, which is probably later. There is definitely, just to kind of hark back to our discussion on Christian versus native pagan sources, it is pretty widely agreed that the Dinnshenchas, the metrical Dinnshenchas, the poetry, is a transcription from an oral tradition. So we are looking at pretty solid native tradition there. Now, whether that is poetry from pre-Christian or post-Christian era is, again, debatable as per previous discussion. So my advice, honestly, would be to not get too hung up on it. But I always feel that the metrical Dinnshenchas is really, really valuable to us, because whether it's Christian or pagan, and, you know, as I said yesterday, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of all that. I believe that the Christian tradition has evolved and grown very much side by side with our pagan evolution in Ireland. So it has all combined really to be very much a living tradition for me, and it's very hard to kind of extricate, you know, what's what. But I know it is important to a lot of people, and it is a curiosity for me as well. So I do kind of pay attention to it as well as I'm going through. A little bit excited when I come across something that seems to be pure pagan, even though pure pagan is not really real or correct or, you know, provable in any way. So the metrical Dinnshenchas, the real value of it, in my opinion, is that it captures, on paper obviously, but it captures the, you know, the mnemonic kind of the tradition of the Fila. So the oral histories that would have been transmitted within secular society. So not academic, well, maybe academic, but not monastic, certainly. So with the lay people, the Dinnshenchas is a very, very good example of the work of the Fila, in my opinion. Not just my opinion, but it is something that I'm very interested in for that reason. So what we have is the Fila orally recording the lore of the place names as they were traveling around, you know. And now, whether a lot of the place names lore seems to be kind of making up reasons why things were called something, or, you know, so it might have kind of been made up retrospectively, but I think that there are some of it that is, you know, a genuine kind of look at how Ireland was. And another interesting thing about the Dinnshenchas is that there are references to the County Clare being in the province of Connacht. And for anybody who's familiar, the provinces are the regions in Ireland, really, the divisions. And there was anything between 3 and 6 through history. But generally now we have 4. There's the kind of ghost province in the middle, which was me, which would have been the 5th province, certainly for a good portion of our history. Kind of going off track here, but we will get to the text. I suppose this is important too. But the reference to Clare is before Clare was basically won into the Munster province. So County Clare is a county over in the, I don't know if I'm pointing at the right side of the screen for you, but it is in the west of Ireland. And it is pretty much the west and not the southwest. So Munster is the southern province, Connacht is the western province. So it really makes sense for Clare to be in Connacht, geographically speaking. But there was a battle in, feck, I've forgotten the date, around 600s, maybe 650, around then, Common Era, in which basically Clare was won into the Munster tribes, onto the property of the Munster tribes, or the divisions, the boundary divisions. And since then, Clare has been part of Munster. But there are references in the Dinnshenchas to Clare being part of Connacht, which would give us a rough date for at least part of the Dinnshenchas, which does even kind of push it a little bit towards more, native, or certainly that kind of in-between time. If you'll remember, I said that the monastic traditions were kind of gaining ground by the 600s, but there still wouldn't have been any kind of like full conversion or anything going on. So there really is that kind of golden age of like the blending of the pagan and the Christian, the older pagan and the newer Christian traditions. So without further ado, we will talk more about this. And if you have any questions, do put them in the comments below, or get into the Facebook group and you will be able to ask them in there, absolutely, and I will answer them, or I'm sure there are many other people. We have a lot of people in this challenge so far, so you're all very welcome. And if you're just joining us, do go back and have a look at the other videos that we have as part of the challenge. So without further ado, we are going to look at the metrical Dinnshenchas. So as I mentioned, this is the Celt translated version, so the Corpus of Electronic Texts from University College Cork, UCC, and you will get it at ucc.ie/Celt, CELT. Okay. So this is a fantastic digitization project that has been running for many years. So what we have when we look at the metrical Dinnshenchas in this translation, you can get it as a single file, or you can jump between the poems. So there are multiple poems, Brúna Bóinne there, Brúna Bóinne 1, Brúna Bóinne 2, and what we're looking for is poem 13, which is Berba, River Barrows. So I'm just going to read it out here, and this is Gwyn's translation of it. The barrow, enduring its silence, that flows through the folk of old Alba. A labour it is to learn the cause whence is called barrow, flower of all famous names. No motion it made, the ashes of Meche, the strongly smitten. The stream made sodden and silent past recovery, the fell filth of the old serpent. 3 turns the serpent made. It sought out the soldier to consume him. It would have wasted by its nature all the kine of the indolent hosts of ancient Erin, before Dinnshenchas slew it. There was rude reason for clean destroying it, for preventing it from forever from wasting above every resort, from consuming utterly. Known to me is its grave where he cast it, a tomb without walls or roof tree, its evil ashes, no ornament to the region, found silent burial in noble barrow. And there is a little footnote here on this line, so I'm just going to pop that out and have a look at it. For this and the following line, Gwyn suggests, the serpent's filth made the stream murmur and seethe without delay. So Berba really means to boil, to, agitation and kind of boiling, or disruption in that way. And the River Barrow is actually really wide and really sedate, and pretty much the whole way along. It's actually partly coastal, up as far as Carlow, I believe. And so you've got this like big, wide, slow-flowing river that has this strangely kind of out-of-place name to it. So this is very common in the Dinnshenchas, like that you've got these explanations going on for the lore of the place names. So just a couple of points, and I think we're probably past our 10 minutes here, so I'm going to finish up, but I'm actually going to go and we're going to do multiple different versions of this because I really want to show you the differences in the lore. And actually, do you know what? We'll talk more about this tomorrow. So what I would like you to do as your action point today is to go to Google Maps and look up the River Barrow and look up the ecology of the River Barrow online, and just have a look around the actual physical place. Okay, so you can go on Google Maps and you can do effectively a street view. It starts up near Glenbarrow in the Slieve Mountains and hits out, oh sugar, where's the mouth of it? It's part of the Three Sisters, the Barrow, the Nore and the Suir. The Suir is in Waterford. It's Wexford, I think, isn't it? That the Barrow goes out. I'm not 100% sure of that, so do look it up and tell me what you find. Okay, so that's going to be your action point for today. Don't worry too much about the rest of it. Mecca has been mentioned there, and if anybody's familiar with him, he is the son of the Mórrígan, and there's all, serpenty stuff going on there and everything. So it is interesting, and we will talk more about that in subsequent videos. Okay, slán go fóill. Oh, do like and subscribe and join the, before we finish, join the challenge if you're interested in it, and you will get more like this. Okay, slán go fóill.